it's the holiday season.
It is. I'm looking at my Christmas tree right in front of me, which...
Oh, tell me about Christmas trees in your house. Are you a person who has many ornaments that are from all times of your life, or are you a more organized person?
Well, right now, so I have a pre-lit Christmas tree because we have cats, and if you have a real tree, they like to climb it. And so after Thanksgiving...
That's a gift to them.
Yes, and to myself. Wait, my husband's talking to me. What's up?
Started?
Yes, I just started.
Okay, I got a joke for you.
Oh, he has a joke for me.
Made one up.
Oh, he just made it up. Okay.
I'm gonna test it on Sarah.
I'm going to test it on everyone. Daryl.
Why was the letter M afraid to get out of the shower?
Why was the letter M afraid to get out of the shower? I feel like as a middle school teacher, I can usually think this.
Afraid to get out of
He
the
was
shower.
Embarrassed.
Oh, a classic dad joke.
That's a classic dad joke.
Embarrassed.
Get out of here. Embarrassed.
Did he really just come up with that?
Did you
on his
really
own?
just make that up all by yourself? He said, "That's my brain." So yeah.
Amazing. Why doesn't he have a best jokes for middle schoolers?
He is best joke for you know what?
Let's get him a contract.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, he could be a millionaire. Anyway, right now, Sarah, my tree has no ornaments
all
on
of
it.
That in.
It has no ornaments on it. It just is.
Does it have no ornaments on it because you
I just
don't
haven't
do
gotten
ornaments?
to it yet. No,
you
I
just
like
haven't
an
gotten
ornament.
to it?
I just haven't gotten into it yet. Yeah.
This year, well, that's good to know. I feel like we've been friends for a long time, and I didn't know ornaments were on the table.
Okay. Yeah, I love an ornament.
But also, it feels like this year things have gotten out of hand because we bought our tree a week before we put it up, and then it just sat, just bare and sad in our house for a little while, and then for days, and then we put the lights on, and then it sat for a couple more days. And now it's done.
I think this weekend I'll get around, or maybe one night this week I'll get around to putting the ornaments on. We do have a couple ornaments that I think are very fun. I have one that's like really cute. It's like a stack of books with a little bookworm living in like a little apple. And then we also have one that we in our house refer to as Heisman Santa because he's like... She's like holding a football in one hand and like giving somebody the strong arm with the other. And those are nice things.
It's the holiday season in football as well.
The truth is no one cares about the Christmas tree but me in my house. And so sometimes I'm like, if no one else cares, I like the lights. It's a nice thing.
Yeah, that's nice.
So it's fine. Okay, now before we move on, maybe we should introduce ourselves. I do want to talk about this Lilly library situation. To the whole podcast.
Welcome everyone to Fated Meets. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels and I write them.
I am Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and editor. And
do you remember on our first episode, you said I'm Jen Reads Romance, and I said, "Is that your given name?" And that's how Mr. Reads Romance was born.
Yeah, right, sure. And Little Romance.
But now he's Dad Joke.
Now he's Dad Joke. Yeah, he's got his own identity.
Mr. Dad Joke.
Who knew? Okay, here is everybody. If you are on our Patreon, you may have heard me talk about this already on our Banter Plus episode, but I really also wanted to talk about it on the whole podcast because I saw something awesome, and I think if you're out there and within a few hours drive of Bloomington, you might also want to see something awesome. So at the University of Indiana University? I don't know. Everybody, whatever that place is in Bloomington.
Well, apologies to people who did go to either one of those fine institutions for us not knowing. I'm going to look it up. You keep going.
Okay.
I'll get to the bottom of it.
The flagship university of the state of Indiana. But people call it IU.
It is Indiana University.
See, there you go. Okay, see, I knew that much.
This was two ladies talk about a state we don't go to usually.
That's true. Usually Indiana is a drive-through state. I leave Illinois.
I only know one thing about Indiana, everybody, and that's Michael Pence. So I'm sorry.
Okay, sure. I leave Indiana and I leave Illinois. I drive through it to get to my mom's in Ohio. I went a different direction this time. I went south. Anyway, Bloomington is the home of the Lilly Library. And this is the library where, if you listen to our episode a couple seasons ago with Rebecca Romney, she's a rare book stealer, and she put together a pretty spectacular collection. It had 100 different like lots in it. And you can get, and I will put everybody go to show notes. If you have not seen their like the guide for this, you can. I actually have it as a print book, but it is also a free downloadable PDF, and it has essentially like a really beautiful description of each item, along with like sort of its condition and like where it was acquired from, and reading these 100 entries is like reading a history of romance itself, kind of. And what's interesting is it goes back all the way to before Pride and Prejudice even, and ends, I think, at like 1999. So nothing in the 20th century is in this catalog. The entire group of items was sold as one, instead of breaking it up and selling it at auction, right? The whole entire thing was purchased by the Lilly Library at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. And this was a couple years ago, but this fall and through February 15th, they have put parts of the collection, including items that they themselves have, out on display in a curated exhibit. Okay. Now, everybody, please check it's at a university, so it's closed over like a lot of like if you're home in Indiana, at Christmas and you're like, awesome, I'm going to go, it might not be open. So everybody, please just go ahead and check the dates before you go. Because we were really careful about doing that because I was very afraid we would pick a football weekend and then be like, wait, what's happening? So this is located in the front 2 rooms of this really beautiful building. This is a beautiful campus. It's the first time I've ever been on it. And I was moved to tears, Sarah. And I will tell you why. Number one is...
it sounds amazing.
Okay, it was amazing.
It's going to church, right?
Yes, it was like going to church for us. But the thing is I have had that experience with other romance readers. I have not had that experience via an institution.
No, of course. It felt so real and personal, but also I assume very validating.
Yes, very validating. And it got the full workup, right? Big gallery posters and these. This library is gorgeous, and it has beautiful wooden display cases. And so there are essentially each display case has a different section, right? A different thing that it's doing. So one of the sections is about young adult romance or religious romances or, inspirational. There's one whole section about historical. There's another whole section. I don't even like Pride and Prejudice, but seeing a first fucking edition of Pride and Prejudice.
I know.
I was like, that's fucking cool, right? And then it has all the little gallery tags with the descriptions of the items and why they're important. And it was awesome. I just really would encourage, and we ended up making a little overnight trip of it. So it was my friend Joe, Kate, and Hannah, right? And we basically all are Chicagoans. It's it's under 4 hours, three and a half or 4 hours. We went down on a Friday night, we sat around it at a hotel and, talked about romance for a few hours in the lobby, and then got up the next morning and had breakfast at a great place called the Uptown Cafe that a friend of mine who lives in Bloomington recommended to me. That was just a walk from our hotel. It was literally 2 blocks away. Then
Amazing.
We actually did drive over there because it was cold, and it was probably a 30-minute walk, but a 3-minute drive, one of those things. And then we spent maybe an hour, and I am not going to lie to you, I probably could have spent more time. You know what I mean? Just really going back through and reading everything again.
Every little thing.
Every little
every
thing.
spine.
Yes, looking at everything again. And the other thing I just want to say is the folks at the front of the room, one of the, I'm sorry, didn't write down anybody's name, but one woman was talking about she works with, the curator's name is Rebecca Bowman, I think. And Rebecca was not there. It was like a Saturday, but this woman was there, and she talked about like the work that Rebecca had done and some of the things that she had been responsible for, and was like so friendly and welcoming. I mean, it just was like this amazing experience. And some of it was just, like I said, seeing romance treated with like the full museum curation.
Yeah.
Right? The full workup.
Amazing.
Yeah. It was
amazing.
It was
I mean,
awesome.
This is how I felt the first time I ever looked at that Romney catalog. Like, it was like, holy crap, somebody's actually giving this the treatment it deserves. I'm so glad, and I would like to have a reason to go to it.
Yeah, it was really, really great. It really was. So everybody, like I said, if you are within driving distance, or even just like a quick weekend trip, where you can just like drop in and see it, it was really worth it. We sort of, as we were walking in, Joe was like, okay, let's manage our expectations. It could just be one table.
Very smart of Joe.
We're here to just like be with each other and have a nice time.
We'll be our own exhibition.
Yes, exactly. But I think we all had that same experience of just feeling like it was so awesome. It was so cool. So anyway, I just wanted to like really be a hype woman for that, because it was an amazing experience. I loved it.
Oh, well, I'm so jealous, but I'm so glad you got to do it. And I'm glad you got to do it with so many other people who love romance.
Yeah, it was really, really fun. This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Avon Books, publishers of Allie Carter's The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year.
If you know anything about Allie Carter, you know that she is going to be playing with mysteries and thrillers in her books. So she's known throughout publishing as being the kind of author who takes a mystery and makes it, for middle grade, or makes it for YA, or makes it for romance. She's always looking for ways to like twist the genre and make it something very cool. And in this book, we meet Maggie Chase, the queen of the cozy mystery, an author, and author Ethan Wyatt, who is like a big-time thriller writer. And Maggie and Ethan do not get along. She hates his guts because they're built to be rivals, these two. And they discovered that they have both been invited to this kind of house on a hill right before Christmas, where they are meeting the most famous mystery writer in the world. And when they get there, there's a snowstorm, the phones are out, the bridge is out, the phones are down. And this famous mystery writer just disappears out of a locked room 2 days before Christmas, leaving Maggie and Ethan having to solve the mystery, figure out if something very nefarious is going on here, and work together, which seems like the actual worst part of it. And so these two are going to have to find every clue and uncover the truth, and maybe fall in love. This one is Rivals to Lovers, which is going to delight.
Yeah, if you're looking for this escape room, but make it a romance novel, holiday, Christmas story, then The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year might be for you. It's available in print, ebook, and audio. And if you click on the chapter title right now, you can be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Avon Books and Allie Carter for sponsoring this week's episode.
I have been having my own renaissance.
Ooh,
I've been having a little audiobook renaissance here in my world. I know we need to talk about this, because as you all know, everybody out there knows I do not read in audio. And this is sort of a thing that I have never done, because it's just never really worked for me at all. But in the last kind of few weeks to a month, I have been taking long walks in the morning. And I don't know. Oh, I know why. Okay, so I've been taking long walks in the morning, and initially I was like just listening to music like a normal person, everyone. That's what normal people do when they take walks. And then we did the Best of the Year episode, and you put Hans on the list.
I did.
And I had not read Hans. And so, as is customary when we do the Best of the Year episode, if Jen puts a book on the list that I have not read, I read it. And so I downloaded Hans in E.
As one does.
Started to read it.
Sure.
Had such a fucking delightful time. and had to like woke up at like 6:30 in the morning one morning and like literally laid in bed until I had to walk my daughter to school reading Hans. And it was so good that I was like, well, I have a problem now because I do not want to leave this book. I must know. I must use all available free time to know what is happening in this book. And so I did the thing.
Yeah.
And I downloaded it in audio and then walked my daughter to school and then did my walk, but listened to the Hans audio.
And you were like, this is nice. I'm reading and doing other things.
And I was like, this is amazing. And then I came home and I walked into the house, and where I would have ordinarily like poured myself a cup of coffee and then gone to work, instead I was like, I am going to just like tidy up.
Yeah.
While I continue to listen to this book. And then I was like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I was like, cool. And then I downloaded Nero and started doing that and was doing the like KU reading audiobook at the same time, or like switching off. And then I was like, okay, what else you got for me? And then I found those Odette Stone books that I had stopped. If everybody remembers, a few years ago, I mainlined all the Odette Stone hockey books, but stopped when they crossed over into Mafia, because I was like, that feels a bridge too far that an NHL hockey player and like a Mafia kingpin would be best friends. But who am I to judge? Because it's now 2 years later, and I was like, very plausible. So then I downloaded the Odette Stone book, and then I downloaded the next Odette Stone book. And now here's the part where I say the thing that I hate when people say to me, but I get to say it to other authors, which is, Odette Stone, you owe me another book. Where are you? What's happening?
Look at the big balls on Brit. Sorry, that's a bit of, right? Is that what he says in Pulp Fiction? Okay, sorry.
Anyway, point is that then I realized I had just dropped like $40 on audiobooks in the span of like 4 days, because I wasn't just listening to the book itself. I was listening to the book and then coming home and like reading on KU. Listen, and then I got nervous because I was like, oh no, like I am not a billionaire.
Well, and then you did something really untoward, which is you
deeply stupid.
You made a comment about it on...
Because fundamentally, everybody, I do not understand how you people do this, because please remember that when I read a book, I read then all the books. Like if I like S.J. Tilly, I want to read every S.J. Tilly book until I no longer can do that. Like, and I need to like take a break or I'm out, right? And then what I discovered is like, that's not how you people work. You audio people.
No.
So then I said online, hey, I get it. Like I'm now like, I get it. I see, I will come to church with you like this weekend, but how can you afford this? And then you guys,
people were like libraries.
1,000 people were like, have you ever heard of the library?
And you're like,
and I was like,
fuck you. Yeah, no, totally.
Everybody needs to calm down. I've heard of the library. Yes, I have Libby. But listen, this morning, some woman said something very flippant about the library to me, and I just blocked her. I was like, stranger, you're out.
Yeah, you're done. Okay, so are we doing this now? Are we going to
school me?
Okay.
Let's do it.
It takes a while for once the rush of discovery has happened, it takes a while to figure out who you are as an audio reader and like what you care about, right? And I think the other thing you have to understand is that there is like a right speed for you as an audiobook listener, right? So
are you talking about the actual speed of the words? Yes, it's 1.3.
Okay. See?
Oh, I'm already there. I know.
See, you got this. Okay. I am a 1.0 audiobook reader.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
How?
Well, here's why. Because I read insanely fast with my eyes. Like I'm a really fast reader.
Same.
And so when I went, and I think this is like helpful. I want you to think about like your praxis. I hope Nikki is laughing when me using that word. So for me, I am going to read way faster with my eyes than I am with my ears. If I am listening to something, it's because I really want to like luxuriate in every word. I'm like taking a bath in an audiobook, right? And so for me, I'm not interested, because if I'm like, I need to know what happens, I'm going to then stop listening and start reading with my eyes, right?
Yeah.
So I think, and that is opposite. Some other people really like to listen, like, at a faster speed, and they are like always listening, right? So I think one of the things you have to do is figure that. Here's the other thing, Sarah. I often reread an audio. Like it's like I'm hanging out with my best friend, right? Like, oh, I'm a little stressed out. Maybe it's time for me to listen to Hidden Legacy again or whatever, right? Or like, ask me how many times I have listened to Marrying Winterborn.
Many times.
Right? I will sometimes, like, if it's an audiobook where I have not read the book before, like I have a really hard time. Like I need to like fixate the names and who people are in my brain. And I sometimes with audio, starting a new book on audio, and I'm like, what's going on here? So if that's the case, if I have the audiobook, sometimes I will read the sample on Kindle. So I can read the first chapter or two.
So that you're in the mix.
Yeah, I'm already in the story, and then I like pick up at wherever it leaves off, chapter 3 or whatever. Here's the other thing. Like there's a big discussion between like the types of narration, right? So you have like full cast audio, right? Which is like Daisy Jones and the Six is a good example, right? There is a different person for every voice. That is like a book that lends itself to that because it's literally like kind of interview style, right? I actually sometimes get a little overwhelmed by people doing too much acting. I'm like, just read this to me, right? I don't actually love two narrators. I'm like, fine with one person. Just tell me the story, right?
Right.
So I think once you figure out like, what you don't like, then you can be a lot more targeted about like finding the books themselves.
Sure.
Right. And as everybody told you, the 3 horsemen of the audiobook apocalypse outside of your wallet, right, are Hoopla and Libby.
Okay, but so I've just been through this. So Libby, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because I am now brand new to this, right? But Libby is the library, and you download on Libby, and then it goes to your e-reader.
Okay. Yes.
Yes. Hoopla is also the library. However, I am told, though I have no evidence of this, Hoopla has no wait time.
Right. So here's the way to think about it. Both of them are library products. They're just right, run by different people.
Libby is the one where when I download the S.J. Tilley book, or when I pull up the S.J. Tilley book I want to listen to next, it's like 32 weeks before I'm allowed to read this book. And this is why it feels crazy to me.
So essentially what you're doing is you are getting on the waiting list. It's like think about Libby as it mimics the actual like physical checkout of a book. So if you went into the library and got the CDs of Nero or whatever, you would check them out for 3 weeks and then no one else could have them. Okay.
Exactly.
Hoopla,
that's not the case.
It's more like Netflix.
Sure. Except, guess what, everybody? The Brooklyn Public Library does not have a partnership with Hoopla.
Hoopla is crazy expensive. That's why.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the other thing that's interesting. Sometimes, like, Adriana was like, well, you only get 10 checkouts per month with Hoopla. And I was like, little known fact, everybody. The number of checkouts you get per month from Hoopla depends on how rich your library is and how many people are using it, right?
Well, yes, because this is the thing that everybody has said. I know I want you to talk about this because Zoraida Cordova texted me and was like, I got you. You need a Queens Public Library, a Brooklyn Public Library, and a Manhattan Public Library.
Yes.
And then you will be able to get everything.
Yes. So I have Chicago Public Library, my school's library, although that's a little tricky because school libraries, even though we have a lot of stuff, runs on something called Sora, even though it's like right? So school libraries have a Libby app that has like a different name.
Sure.
And then Listen, Cuyahoga County, I love you. It's where I grew up. My mom, I basically impersonate my mother at your library. And like we share a library card because she
But
does.
also, everybody, like, there are a couple people, and I will put these in show notes. A couple people responded to me and they were like, my library has Hoopla and you can pay $50 to be a member of my library. So, like, there are ways to do this without impersonating Jen's mom, is my point.
Sure. But also, if you know anybody.
But Carol's lovely.
Listen, you know anybody in Cuyahoga County, though, get their fucking library card number because that shit is lit. They have everything. I mean, Cuyahoga County routinely has more than Chicago Public Library, right?
Yeah. One woman who replied to me, thank you very much. I'm sorry, everybody. I did not write everybody's names down, but one woman was very helpful. And she was like, I have 8 different library systems on my Libby account.
Yes, right.
Amazing.
And that's it. You like Libby can like know all of them.
Yep. So we are going to put all of this stuff in the show notes, but I also want to call out some other things that people said. So obviously there is Libro FM, which we have talked about on the podcast before. You sign up, you attach an independent bookstore to your Libro FM account, and when you purchase the ebooks there, the bookstore gets money. That's lovely. We love independent bookstores. Great. Terrific work, everyone. There is Everand, which used to be Scribd, which is a subscription service. It has a lot of audio originals to Everand. Fun fact, Megan Frampton runs the audio department, the romance audio department at Everand, so that's cool. Then there is Spotify. You get 12 hours free of audiobooks on Spotify every month. That doesn't seem like a very good deal to me.
Well,
but I'm not a Spotify
Here's what I would
subscriber.
say. We have Spotify because we have Spotify. So it's just like if you have Spotify, it's like a bonus thing.
But it's not like a credit. Like at Amazon, you get a credit, and that's one book. Or I'm sorry, at Audible,
You have to
get
be
a
like,
credit in one
I'm
book.
going to listen to this 12-hour. I'm going to make sure my book is less than 12 hours.
You got to
basically.
be
Right.
thoughtful about that.
Yeah.
Then there's Audible. And Audible, you subscribe and you get a 1 credit a month.
Yes. Well, or you can do more. I mean, here's the advantage. Okay, the downside of
But
Audible
there are
is it's
tips.
right. The downside of Audible is that it's Amazon, right? That's also the upside of it, right? So the really slick thing that Audible has is like, okay, let's say that you had Hans on your Kindle.
This is how I got trapped.
Yes. And then you have Hans from Audible. It has this like whisper sync.
Way cheaper.
No, it's not only that it's way cheaper, but it's also syncs, right? So like you can read in your book and then put it down and then you get in the car.
Very
and
clever.
It picks up where you left off, which is cool.
Terrific work, everyone.
Anything that is like an Audible original or on KU is going to be there. So like they have a lot. They have big sales, right? I mean, I think this is just one of the things that
So people,
They have-
some of the tips that people left me are like, every once in a while, there's like an Audible sale where you can buy extra credits
Yes.
for cheap.
Yes.
Every once in a while, there's an Audible sale where you get like 3 months where every book is only 99 cents. So people are like, so I subscribe for 3 months, buy a bunch of books, and then quit. Like, so there are a lot of ways that people are playing a very big game here. I will say it feels like a full-time job. So I did download everything and I was like, I'm just going to sort of like quietly make my way through all of these things. But it does seem to me like what I really need is a Hoopla account.
yeah.
Because apparently that's where all the indie authors are.
Yeah, and Hoopla is mostly for digital media, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
not, there's some ebooks and stuff, but mostly it's for like, they also have they have magazine subscriptions and stuff. There's also Chirp, and Chirp does discounted audiobooks. And the thing I would say with Chirp is you sign up for like the romance email, and then you get an email every day and it says like, this is on sale. And you get, you can get great books. I think for me, the thing that is, you just have to, I think, be at peace with, you have different audiobooks in different locations, and that's just the way it goes.
Yep. In fact, and I just showed Jen, I am in Rhode Island for 1 month a year, and I have a library card there, so I got to check and see if the Ocean State library system
Probably has hoopla.
has
Yeah, I would
hoopla.
imagine.
And listen, here's the other thing that I found. A lot of people, when I was like, you guys, the wait times are weeks long. People were like, no, they're not. And I was like, you do not live in Brooklyn, New York. Like, I think if you live in a small town, the hold times are very different. I also realized very quickly that you people all read in a very different way, in that you cannot glom a backlist.
Right. Unless you're buying. Yeah, exactly.
Because
Yeah.
without basically emptying their wallet.
Right. Yeah.
But
absolutely.
anyway, that is Sarah learns about audiobooks 15 years into her career.
Yeah. The other, it's worth saying too, Julia Whalen's Audiobrary.
Yes.
Right. I mean, we want to have Julia Whalen on. It's on our to-do list, but she is a real voice. She is a real person who cares deeply about an advocate. That's the word I was looking for voice actors, because they do the job once, and like, unlike other kinds of actors, don't see a like.
They never get royalties.
Yeah, Like, I know words.
So the way that this works, my friends, is when an author writes a book forever, or at least for the first 99 years of their career of the book's life, anytime somebody buys or downloads or borrows a book, the author gets money, and that's called a royalty.
Right. And so she like essentially has a new app called Audiobrary, where if people put the book there, then the narrators get royalties, which is super cool.
Which is like just good sense. Like, especially now, it feels like this is going to have to shift, because I think the way that we got away with this, publishing got away with this for many years, was like, well, how many people went to the library and pulled out and took out the 45 tapes that it took to, read Lord of Scoundrels? Not that many. But now that it's so easy, and, people are in their cars, or they're walking around with their iPhones and just like can listen to an audiobook anytime they want. Audiobooks are so much more popular. We see that, when I see my book sales, audiobooks are just more and more and more prevalent in the sales, budget, in the spreadsheet of sales. And so we need to stand alongside our narrators, writers, because they are selling a lot of books for us, and they deserve a cut.
Well, and that's the other thing you'll figure out is like that you have favorite narrators. You're like, I will listen to this person narrate whatever they are narrating. And so sometimes that's a cool way to find a new book. You're like, oh, I just really love Scott Brick. What's he doing?
Robert Petkoff.
Correct.
Remains my favorite. He did all of the IID books.
Sure.
So that is the way audiobooks works, but we should really talk about Christmas books.
Yeah.
Or holiday books.
Well, I'm going to admit that most of mine are Christmas books.
All of mine are Christmas books. The one, and I think I should just start with it.
Okay, let's go.
Is Christmas Plus, is what I'm calling it.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Sophie Lark, author of Brutal Prince, an enemies to lovers mafia romance.
So Brutal Prince is the first book in Sophie Lark's Brutal Birthright series, which is an incredibly popular series, kind of just on the edges of dark romance, and a huge, huge series on TikTok. So here is the setup. Callum and Aida are from rival Chicago mafia families. He is the eldest, boy king of the Irish mafia in Chicago, and she is the girl, the only girl on the Italian side. She lives with her father and her three brothers. He's kind of dealing with the fact that he has to be the head of a family now, and there are shenanigans that go on with these mafia kids. So the book kind of begins with all of Aida's siblings and her sneaking into Callum's sister's birthday party, and they accidentally set the place on fire and they steal something, and it's just getting chaotic between the two of them. And so the dads finally come together and they say, hey, we need to sort this. We cannot be infighting. We have enough mafia problems, out in the world. We can't just be mafia probleming with each other. And so the only way to solve it, Jen.
Mafia romance reasons, Sarah.
Mafia marriage.
Of course.
Just like putting a pin on mafia books are medieval books. Everybody, it's just true here. And so listen, but what's so fun about this book is it's not, while it has like all that kind of edgy, adventurous, like dangerous mafia stuff going on, it's also very funny. These two are pissed that they have to get married. Neither of them wants an arranged marriage. And so they are legitimately messing with one another the entire lead up to the marriage. And then a little bit after too, like she switches out his wedding tux. He is like constantly on like teasing her. And then when they finally do end up married and they have to make it work, we really are seeing them kind of the movement from enemies to lovers is really like key here. So the chemistry is big, the action is big, the sex is big. And listen, people love this book.
Yeah, of course. So if you would like to check out Brutal Prince, it is available in print, ebook, audiobook, and with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. And if you click on the chapter title right now, you will be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Sophie Lark for sponsoring this week's episode.
I want to talk about The Nightmare Before Christmas by Sarah Rosh. I'm going to go with Rosh on this. I apologize, Sarah, if I have mispronounced your name. Also, Jen, okay, so before we talk about these books, I think we need to just like preface, we're not going to do a ton of what holiday reads mean, etc., because we have done this every single year.
You're just here for like, give me a couple new ones.
Yeah.
We got you.
In fact, today I said to Eric, I think we should have a landing page.
Of
that
Christmas
is just
titles.
all of the holiday episodes, because we talk about like one year we did only books about Santa. One year,
yeah, we've
like
tried,
that,
right?
Like Santa,
right.
Like
this year we
Santa
were
can
like
get it books.
Nothing we've talked about.
Only
before.
people we've never talked about before.
Right. New books only. Yeah.
Yeah, no repeats. So we're not. You'll see when you look at the holiday episodes from before. We often repeat like. I
love this book, blah, 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 right?
Right. I wrote in a Christmas anthology. We're skipping all of that. None of that is happening.
Instead, we went 29 rounds on the audiobooks.
But I do want to point out something that I have pointed out in the past, I think, on a holiday episode, because it bears repeating. And that is, if you are reading a holiday romance and there are no characters named Nick, Holly, or Chris, you are not reading a Christmas romance.
I've got to tell you, I have leveled up this year to something even better than that. You're just going to have to wait. Okay.
Well, I get it. I mean, I will say I do have two that do not have those character names, but as I was searching, because everybody, this is a full service podcast. Like, we do a lot of research before we actually come to the table. And I read a lot of books that had Nicks in them. Listen, if you're out there and you're thinking, gosh, I'm writing a holiday romance for next year and the character's name is Nick or Holly or Chris, listen, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. Like, that's what I want. I want it to wash over me like lukewarm cocoa.
Like a little marshmallowy.
Exactly. Okay, but this one, so The Nightmare Before Christmas is a fantasy. It's romantasy. It is essentially if The Nightmare Before Christmas, that Tim Burton movie, is like a favorite of yours, this is your book. It is going to give you a lot of joy. So here is the deal. The structure of this book is that every holiday has like a royal court. So the series that this is in is a royals and romance series. So every holiday in this series has a royal court. So there's like the Easter court and the Halloween court and the Christmas court and the, Flag Day court, whatever. Like all the courts are there. And the main hero of this book is, well, there are two heroes of this book, but so the hero that we meet first is Nicholas Claus, right? Son of Santa, brother of Chris Claus with a K. And Nicholas his nickname is Cole. So Cole used to love Christmas, but then his father, like Santa, got involved and like made Christmas like the biggest holiday, and like it's a corporation now, and there's like no magic to it anymore, and now like all Cole wants to do is like take off and not be a part of the whole like Christmas spectacular. What he is very happy to do, though, is like have drunken makeouts with like mysterious men who he thinks are human, like just normal mortals, instead of showing up at like the Christmas ball or the holiday ball or whatever. Here's the problem. He is heir to Christmas. So at some point, he's going to have to like take on the mantle of Santa. And at that point, and in order for him to do that, like this is like an old medieval structure in the sense that the best way for him to consolidate power and for the holiday courts to all consolidate power is marriage. Mm-hmm. So his best friend Iris, who is the princess of Easter, okay, he's going to marry his best friend Iris, the princess of Easter. He's like not into her. So, okay, but the problem is that Iris is his best friend, but Chris, his brother, has been like in love with her forever. And so like this is fucking chaos. Like this isn't going to work. And he kind of knows this, but he like really is just like, I don't know. They don't know how to get out of it. It's a classic historical structure, even though these are not historical people. This is like very contemporary.
Right.
It's very contemporary. You get it.
Of course. I got you.
Okay. Except, so then there's like there's a royal ball, a Christmas ball. Santa throws this ball and it's basically like, here we are. We're joining the Eastern Christmas houses. Except, Jen, who shows up? Fucking Halloween.
Oh, what a dick.
The Halloween house shows up, and they're like, we challenge Cole for Easter Princess's hand.
Ooh.
And our challenger is this guy over here, Hottie McHottie, Hex Halloween. That's his literal name, Jen. It's perfect. This is a perfect book.
Oh my God, I'm delighted by this.
Hex, the Prince of Halloween. I actually think his name is not Halloween. It's something to do with like, it's like his dad's name is Ichabod, and that's all I couldn't remember.
I mean,
honestly. Like it was just too perfect.
What more do you need to know, Sarah?
Hallows,
sure.
I think. Listen, I'm sorry. I apologize, Sarah, if like I'm getting it all wrong, but just know I'm delighted.
The enthusiasm's carrying us through.
Exactly. So wait, but here's the problem, Jen. Remember that guy he was making out with when he was ignoring all the like Santa excitement? It wasn't a human.
Of course
It wasn't
not.
a mortal. It was Hex Halloween. Son of Ichabod.
Put it in the Lilly library.
Put it in the Lilly library. Listen, so here's the problem. Both of them now are supposed to be courting Princess Easter, who is in love with another guy.
Sure, King
But
Sweetest Day.
instead, they can't keep their hands off each other. And it's a fucking delight.
This is great, Sarah. It's a full-length novel.
It is. It is. To the tune. Listen, not only is that, for those of you who care about this, it also has sprayed edges.
Sure. Does it have a step back, though? I don't know. Okay.
It does not. It does not. But it is very adorable, and
That's awesome. I love it.
I didn't mind a minute of it.
That's terrific. Okay, I feel like now I want to rethink our whole structure where I just go from like the most over the top ones like backwards. And then like we'll end with the ones that are like most serious.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. So because of that, I'm going to change my order. And I am going to start with a Harlequin Presents by Maisie Yates called Pregnant Enemy Christmas Bride.
All right. I can't complain about it.
And what I want to do, everybody, is
Pregnant enemy Christmas bride.
Christmas Bride. Now, here's what I want to tell you. If you are on social media at all, there's some big kerfuffle about somebody on TikTok made fun of Harlequin Presents titles, and then everybody was like, my sword is ready to defend. But the person who really, I think, went hardest is our friend Amanda Sinelli, who writes a great Harlequin Presents.
Terrific.
And she was responding to one of Kate's posts. And so here's what Kate said. People say Harlequins are quote unquote unrealistic, but my favorite ones feature like the kindest, smartest, most capable woman you've ever seen, beating the odds of some sort of brutal upbringing or experience, and then just a very tall guy who has spent his entire life wrecking shit because of his one mildly bad dad. Pretty realistic, to be honest. Pretty pointed social commentary, to be frank. And Amanda Sinelli replied, and I was like, put it in the Lilly library, right? She wrote, presents hero. My dad, a self-made billionaire playboy Italian king, locked me in the family crypt as punishment whenever I showed emotion. And so now I, a self-made billionaire playboy Italian king, lock myself in the family crypt inside my mind.
A mind crypt, family mind crypt.
So you see, I'll never fall in love. And I was like, and then it's like heroin, eye roll. Can we just get back to the business meeting so I can get home to save my my tiny family hotel from your corporate takeover? Hero, I love you. And this book, Pregnant Enemy, Christmas Bride, perfectly embodies Amanda's brilliant post. So let me tell you about this. And I've got to tell you, everybody, you know, when you're reading something, okay, if you grew up on Harlequin Presents, sometimes you read one where you're like, I feel like I'm 20 again. I just feel it. That's how this book made me feel.
Nice.
Let me paint a picture for you, Sarah. It starts off with Florence. It's interesting. It's in first person and she's the only narrator. She runs a corporation, a big, huge mega corporation that she inherited from her father. And her dreaded, most dastardly enemy is Hades, obviously.
Yeah.
And he also inherited his corporation from his father. And they are just like these two titans who are constantly going at it. Right? So they have these meetings. And the meeting at the beginning is who's going to get this big, NASA. Who's going to get this big NASA job? Right? And, they're just like two lions stalking each other throughout these corporate boardrooms. Then what happens is she gets in the car afterwards and says, take me to this hotel. And she gets there and she goes up, and who comes in but Hades? And it turns out that these two have been having a secret affair for 10 years. No one knows about it. All they do is like meet in hotel rooms and meet in boardrooms and like fuck like crazy. And they just he's the only man she's ever been with and she's in love with him. But like, what's going to happen? And so then it turns out they have this amazing night together. The next day she finds out he is engaged. And she is like, what the fuck? And she goes and she finds him in his office. And of course, they're like, you're not on the list. And she's like, oh, he'll see me.
I am the list.
Right? And they have like crazy sex. And she is like, basically like, never talk to me again. She's so angry. And she then takes her best friend. They go to her mother's house in Lake Como.
Cut to 6 months later.
Cut to 8 weeks later.
She's very sick on the floor.
She is. And her mother is like, I think you're pregnant. Now, Hades is about to get married the next day. Does she call him? No.
Of course not. Fuck that guy.
No, Sarah, you're doing it wrong. She gets on the corporate jet and flies to him. And it is the fucking church. And she goes to him. Literally, he's about to get married in 2 hours. And she says, I'm pregnant. And he says, that changes everything. He kicks out his bride and calls a stylist to have a wedding gown
made for her pregnant body.
And this bitch walks down the aisle with him an hour later. And
Amazing.
The people who were sitting in the church had no idea.
Amazing.
And
well, who cares? It's one white dress for another. It's fine.
Sarah, I have to tell you, I just couldn't get over this book. I loved it so much. So it is and so it's a Christmas wedding. And so then this is like, the wedding's over. They kiss like crazy. This kiss was so fucking sexy that it is shocking that God did not strike them dead with a lightning bolt through the church roof.
Okay.
And he says to everybody, have a good time at the reception. We will not be joining you. And everybody realizes it's because they're about to go have crazy sex. Mm-hmm. And they do. And then, they talk about their feelings and they figure it out. And in fact, his father was terrible and blah, blah. But I've got to tell you, this book just really delivered everything you would want Harlequin Presents to deliver. That's it.
Now, is there justice for the poor bride who got kicked out?
I don't want to spoil that part for you because it was so perfectly done and I loved it.
All right, perfect.
I mean, I spoiled the whole wedding part, but you knew they were going to end up together. But the way the bride number one, deals with it is, Maisie Yates, you're the real one.
Awesome. All right, so we're going crazy forward. That's what we're doing?
I think I've just given you my craziest one. So now we're just...
Okay, well, I mean, I obviously started with
that's why I was like, we got
a holiday
I can't
wars.
then go to a nice, sweet, cute romance. You got to back up from crazy.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Lark Maitland, author of Ash and the Butterfly.
So these are Regency era historicals with really dramatically awesome covers if you have not seen them.
Yeah, and they're really beautiful.
Truly gorgeous. And in this one, we have scientist Luke Ashburton arrives to open the Earl of Bexley's new museum, a fun time when rich people open museums with their money. And the last thing he really expects is to find the building on fire. So he now is tasked with essentially salvaging what he can in order to open the new museum. But he really needs the late Earl's field journals in order to sort of figure out what the vision for the museum was. So unfortunately, they are written in code, which means he is going to need a mathematician to help him. Unfortunately, the person he finds is beautiful whirlwind Grace Chetwood. He encountered her at a ball a year ago. It was super sexy. There was a lot of attraction between them, but things ended poorly with a slap to the face.
Excellent.
I like it already. So Grace is really excited to crack this cipher. Her life in, London is kind of messy right now. It'll be a good break, but it means working with Luke, a man she wishes she could hurl into the sea. And she is completely annoyed at the fact that he is so handsome and she cannot stop thinking about him. So over the weeks of long days and sleepless nights, they discover that they have the ability to infuriate each other, but also, both of them start to suspect that maybe hotter passions between them really are about a different kind of hot passion between them.
Nice.
So, let's get on it. It sounds amazing.
Well, if you also would like to get on it, you can read Ash and the Butterfly right now in print or ebook, wherever you get your books. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Lark Maitland for sponsoring this week's episode. I'm going to talk about Kingpin's Nanny.
Yes, you are, Sarah. Yes, you are.
By Evie Rose. So, okay.
I think I read this. Not going to lie to you.
This week?
No, but I just feel that I feel certain I have.
Yeah, well, it's a standout. So, okay. So this is part of a series that is multiple authors have written a book in the series. The series is called Cam Show Crush.
Sure.
And it's centered around basically OnlyFans style sex thing, like sex work, online sex work thing, where you can make your own account and basically it just has to be, it's called OnlySantas.
Of course it is.
So you gotta you gotta be Christmas related. holiday themed. So it's like Evie Rose and Evie Croft and Allison Archer and Chloe Maine and Lauren Fox have all done it. And this one I'm pretty sure I've read other books by Evie Rose. I think she may be the person that you and I have talked about recently.
You were definitely reading.
Where like it's like the London Mafia. I feel like we discussed this.
He's head of a mafia.
Yeah, he's head of mafia. London Mafia, and all the characters have last names that are London neighborhoods, like Mr. Mayfair and Mr. Kensington. Listen, I don't ask questions. This all feels plausible to me. So, okay, here we go. Lucas Knight has a problem, which is that his sister and her husband passed away in a sort of tragic thing, and they have left him with a young niece who is like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old and very cute, but also very lonely. And he hired her, this like wonderful nanny who, she's terrific and, like he's never around. The only thing he does is every day he comes home for dinner. Like he's there and he either has dinner with them, but it's not always the case that he eats with them, but he's always there for the like 20 minutes of bedtime for this girl. And this book begins with the orphaned child sitting in Bella's lap. Bella's the nanny, and basically says like, do you think Santa will bring me what I want for Christmas, Jen? And what is it that she wants for Christmas?
A mother. She
wants a mommy and a daddy. And of course, Bella is like just devastated by this and, like doesn't know what to do. But also it's important to note that Bella has had the hots for this guy, Lucas, for like the entire year that she has been nannying for him. He does not look at her. He does not interact with her. He has no relationship with her one way or the other. All he does is like pay her bills. And like, he's kind of a ruthless employer. Like, of course, he's a kingpin, Jen. And so she never gets a day off. Like the only day, so she asks for Christmas off and she's like, it's Christmas Day. I would like the day off. And he's like, okay, fine. And she has, and so she decides that like, she's like alone on Christmas and like, she only has this one day off and like, she really just wants to get him out of her mind. And like, she wants to feel like he's basically made her feel like she's invisible, right? He never looks at her, never interacts with her. And so she makes an account on OnlySantas. And, she starts her like OnlySantas show and an anonymous profile joins. Sure. And the name of the profile is Your Boss.
I definitely read this.
Who could this be?
I'm not sure.
Who could this be?
This kingpin, I bet. Is it her boss? Just a wild guess.
It is, in fact, her boss. And so then he offers like thousands of pounds for like her to make the show private just for him. Anyway, you all know, I don't have to get into what happens next. This is exactly as advertised. This is like exactly the kind of Christmas novella you want, holiday novella you want. It's very short. It's very spicy. I will just say that she's like 20 years younger than him. So there's like big daddy vibes here. So if that's your kink, this is going to do a lot for you. You're going to really have a lovely time with this.
Perfect.
That was Kingpin's Nanny.
I have one that I swear to you, this is actually more like a short story. I think it's 40 pages. And it is called, I picked it really strictly based on the title. It is called From Meltdown to Mistletoe by Jessica Terry. Okay. And I was like, okay, I'm curious about this. Let me see what's happening. So, and this is actually like, it was like a perfect read. It was like really just like short and sweet. So Kia Love is our heroine, and she has really Listen, this poor woman has just had the shit kicked out of her for the past 18 months, right? Like, she lost her job. She eventually had to, like, you know, like, move to a crappy apartment because she, like, had to leave her home. You know, she couldn't make the mortgage payments. Someone stole her puppy. Her cousins were helping her move into her new apartment, and they dropped her TV and then kind of, like, ghosted her instead of replacing it. But she has a job now, essentially working as, like, a waitress at a diner. And she's like, and here's the thing that is so great. She's just like, I am not going to let this series of bad events get me down. Like, I am a survivor. Sometimes we have to go through things. I'm just going to, like, you know, like, buck up, little camper. So she notices one day a really hot guy down the hallway and she recognizes him. It's Jaleel Dunn. And she and Jaleel were in high school together. And this seems to be like a small Georgia town. So anyway, she greets him. She's super friendly, but he's like, you know, I'm like a man, whatever. So the next morning, it's like she's on her way to work. It's Christmas Day, and she is going to be, like, working that day, but she's going to get, like, extra tips and all this stuff. So she's like, whatever. And so she sees him at the elevator, and she just, like, strikes up a conversation. She has, like, her little Santa hat on, and she's like, hey, Jaleel, how's it going? And, you know, she's like, oh, you're an early riser. Like, she's just, like, her normal, friendly self. And he is such a jerk to her. He basically is like, look, is this what we're going to be doing? Like, just because I knew you in high school, like, let's not do this. You know, just, like, pretend if you see me, you just smile. But, like, and she's like, I will do you one better. I will ignore you. And she, like, just walks away. Like, she's like, I walk down the stairs rather than deal with this guy being such a jerk to me. So she goes off to work, and she is, you know, for the most part has an okay day until these really mean women that she went to high school with, like, come in to the diner for some reason. And they are so shitty to her, Sarah. Like, they just are, like, sending the food back and complaining and just, like, really humiliating her. And she finally, like, loses her mind and, like, basically, like, curses them out. And it really did feel very cathartic for everyone reading. I'm sure you'll feel the same way. And at that moment, Jaleel happens to have come in to, like, pick up some food. And so he, like, is like, helps her and gets her out of there. And she's like, you were so mean to me. And he's like, I am really apologizing. I was so terrible. My mother would be so ashamed of me if she knew how I acted towards you. And they go back to their apartment. They go to her place and they're like, let's hang out and watch a movie. And then you know what else they do, Sarah? They have great sex. And he's like, I'm really sorry. Let me eat you out twice. Merry Christmas.
Amazing.
What a hero. I just told you the whole plot, but it's fine. I read it in 30 minutes. It was
a delight.
It was a delight. I just was like, this is what I want.
What is the name of it?
It's called From Meltdown to Mistletoe.
Oh, right. Yep.
Jessica Terry. Okay. A new to me author, but I was like, I'm going to be checking out Jessica's books. It was so fun. And she really did say, like, it's a short, you know, she's like, I just wanted to write something, like, really fun. And I think maybe these characters appear in, like, one of her other books in, like, the periphery. And so she was like, it was just, like, a really fun little thing.
Okay.
It was super great.
All right. I want to talk about Merry Little Mishap by Vivian May.
Okay.
So Elena, the heroine of this book, works for a magazine, like a online magazine in New York City. She is New York City, like, born and bred. She lives in Manhattan, but her family, her very Catholic, very Puerto Rican family lives, like, also in New York City and is, like, a big piece of this little novella. But Elena lives away from them in an apartment building where the super of the apartment building lives just above her, and his name is Nick. And
obviously,
he's incredibly competent at everything. He can fix a sink or an elevator or whatever. And he's also extraordinarily sexy. And they always seem to, like, run into each other in, like, awkward situations. Mm-hmm. And he lives directly above her. And the book begins, for example, with her opening the door. She's got like a face mask on, like her robe on. And she opens the door and he is standing there, and his dog, he has been delivered a package for her, and the dog has opened it and has gotten hold of the second most popular dildo in the country. And the reason why this very pink dildo has been delivered, or was to be delivered to Elena, is because she is currently working on a 12 Nights of Sexmas column for her magazine. So like think like for like Vulture or, The Cut. And so she has been spending a lot of time alone for the last few nights, like better understanding, like practicing or like testing all of these particular items that she is testing for her article. She is obviously very embarrassed about this whole situation, but whatever. The book continues, and the two of them, and it's very clear that these two have like the full hots for each other, but they are awkward and like kind of dancing around each other. She's kind of like she's very like kind of uncomfortable talking about her job because of the way that she was brought up. And so, but he has this plan that he is going to skip his own giant family dinner, like on Christmas Eve, and instead order Chinese food and affect a kind of meeting with her where like maybe she will want to have Chinese food with him, like want to have dinner with him.
Sure.
So this happens, surprising both of them in the lobby of their building, and they get into the elevator, and about like halfway up to their apartments, the elevator craps out and stops. And they are stuck in this elevator. And she has a package in her hand, which is the final thing for these 12 Nights of Sexmas, and it's sent to her from like a company or her boss or whatever. And she opens it up, and it is a card game that's like, the cards are sexier. They're like first base, second base, third base questions. And it's like truth or dare, but with cards. And so they sit on the floor of this broken elevator. He's like, I don't know how to fix the elevator. It's the one thing I can't fix. But we'll call the police or we'll call the fire department, and they have to wait forever. So they're sitting on the floor of this elevator, and they start to play this game. And of course, it gets...
Do they play like strip poker? Like what?
Well, so they add a layer of stripping to it, but the point of this game is that you're not supposed to touch. You're supposed to like answer all the questions but not touch. It's like an intimacy game, but like it gets very, very intense. Like, and then before long, they're just masturbating in front of each other. Listen, I don't mind it. In an elevator, in a dirty elevator in New York City, put that out of your mind. It's fine. And so then, like, it's just adorable. And then at the end, one of the questions that is in the game, well, I don't want to give it away, but in the end, it's just very obvious that, like, these two have just wanted each other forever. And it's extremely cute, even as it is wildly sexy. Like, yikes on bikes. Singeing your fingers pages. So I think you'll really enjoy it. This is my first book by Vivian May, but it will not be my last. I was very charmed by this book. It was very cute characters, and yeah.
Okay, so my next book is Snowed In by Catherine Walsh. And this one starts off with a prologue, which basically is one of those prologues where you're like, well, I'm reading this now. And it has Megan running away from her wedding.
Oh, you love that.
In her wedding dress, right?
Perfect.
Literally running out of this hotel, trying to make sure no one finds her. And as she like comes out like the back door of the hotel into this alley, she sees Christian, who is like this kid like this guy she went to like school with her entire life. And he's like hungover and like smoking. And he's basically like, hey, what's up? And she's like basically like takes off, right? And he's like, wrong way. Like you're like, if you want to get out of here, you got to go the other way, right? And then she like, she's looking for a cab and she's just going to like jump in it. And that's that. It picks up 5 years later. And this is all takes place in Ireland. I bet the audio for this. See, I bet the people reading this audiobook have delightful Irish accents, but I don't know. I had to imagine in my brain. 5 years later, it picks up, and Christian is like, so it's dual point of view. Christian has just moved to Dublin. He has, kind of a cool job that he really likes and is at a bar with his friend when somebody pours a drink all over him, and it's Megan. And it turns out that she is there, and he's basically like, Megan? And she's like, what are you doing here? So after leaving her small town, she goes to Dublin, and they, it's late. So he ends up like walking her home because she was going to meet like a online date there, and this guy never shows up. And so he walks her home, and it's really interesting because she invites him up, and it's clear like it's going to be like a one-night stand. Like she's inviting him up for sex. And I was like, oh, this is exciting. Like, so earlier in the book, what's about to happen? Well, they get interrupted. Like nothing really has happened yet. Her mother calls and is basically putting the whammy on her to come home for Christmas. And what Christian discovers is that like she has not gone back home since the wedding. Like essentially just she's like, I am like a pariah in this town. I dumped my high school sweetheart, and exactly, the star of the show, and nobody knows why I did it, and everybody thinks I'm crazy, but her one brother who like moved to Melbourne or something is coming back home, and so her mom is basically like, you have to come. And Christian, meanwhile, where this is going, fake dating, right, is like so tired of being the only one who's single in his family and the way everybody thinks he's so pathetic. And so he essentially tells her, and what I loved about this, he's like, what we should do is pretend to date and go home together. And she was like, that's stupid. Like she like flatly rejects him.
No, thank you.
Right? Like, are you kidding? That's dumb. And then the next day he tells his friend, and this friend of his is like, that's stupid. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, that's not real. And I was like,
not a thing that happens.
Thank you for like giving voice to this. But he sees Megan, and he they go out essentially like for drinks, and he makes his case again, and they like on a napkin in the bar like write down their parameters, and then they're gonna like head home. And it's all the wacky Christmas holiday hijinks you can imagine, right?
I love it.
This book is a really fun read. The dialogue is really the really witty and sparkling. The pacing's really good. It came out last year, and it was like just not on my radar at all. And but I was just super delighted by it. So Snowed In by Catherine Walsh.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Lumi Gummies, free THC gummies delivered legally nationwide. Jen, it's that time of year when everybody needs a gummy.
So Lumi Gummies have a whole rainbow of flavors and feels and offer sativa, hybrid, and indica effects, so you can choose the kind of vibe you're looking for. And the kind of vibe I was looking for was the decorating for the holidays vibe.
Perfect. Well, that's so nice. Put on like some groovy Christmas music.
I love how my house looks for the holidays, but I don't love getting it there, right? And so, just having this be something that I was like, okay, I have the, take one, and, I'm like sort of putting up my ornaments. Like I said, like everything just seemed so like pleasant. I was super relaxed. I just was able to enjoy it for the experience of doing it rather than it feeling like a chore. And so, I just was really happy. I had my playlist on, like all the lights were twinkling and sparkling, and, I had my candles burning, and it was basically a very pleasant time.
So if you would also like to have a lovely time decorating your house for the holidays, you can go to lumigummies.com and use the code FATED50 for free gummies with a limited $50 off coupon, which gets you an actual full jar of gummies. It's a great deal. If you're listening to this after the holidays and it's that code isn't working, you can always use the code FATEDMATES for 30% off your order. So go to lumigummies.com and use the code FATED50 at checkout for a free jar of gummies for a limited time. And after that, you can use the code FATEDMATES for 30% off on all your orders. Again, that's lumigummies.com and code FATED50. Thanks, as always, to Lumi Gummies for sponsoring this week's episode. I'm going to go to Timothy Janofsky's You're a mean one, Matthew Prince.
You love him. Yeah.
I do. I think he's really, okay, here's where I'm at. Rom-coms, we've talked a lot about like the struggle is like, how do you balance the rom and the com? And the reality is like, this one does that really well. Like, he's a very funny writer. His characters are kind of amusing in their bones, and the situations are funny, but he never sacrifices romance for comedy.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So
that's perfect. Okay.
So the main character of this book, Matthew Prince, the eponymous character, if you will, of this book, Matthew Prince, this is like a little Schitt's Creaky. If you like that show, this book will be for you, but you'll understand, you've seen this play before. But Matthew Prince he is extraordinarily wealthy, very, very spoiled by his parents who don't care even a bit about him. Just like has lots and lots of money. Like, parents, they're fine. Like, they're like, oh, Matthew's fine. But like, they're not mean. They're just disinterested. His father is like a billionaire banker, and his mother wrote a kind of like extremely, extremely popular, like high fantasy book series. And like, they just are too busy for him. But Matthew is really fine. He, at the beginning of the book, though, he has purchased an island in the middle of the Caribbean. And he's done this kind of like, everybody sort of thinks like, oh, he's actually done this on like a whim. Like, Matthew just like has access to his money and like is irresponsible. And there is kind of a PR situation that goes on where his parents are like, you can't be this way. Like, you're kind of ruining the vibe of this family and the way the world looks at us. Like, we have a certain level of whatever to uphold, and this isn't great. So we're sending you for the holidays to your grandmother, who is kind of a hippy dippy lady in a small town, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And it's a classic Christmas small town. And when he gets there, his grandmother lives in this like nice, this house, and there is a man living in this house with her, and his name is Hector Martinez. And Hector is young, and at first blush, Matthew's like, who is this person? Like, why is this man like just living in your house with you? And it becomes clear that like Matthew's grandmother like collects misfit toys, and like Hector was going to have to drop, like, he had some money problems and he was going to have to drop out of college. And so she was like, no, you're not doing that. You're going to move in because I have plenty of room in my house. And so Hector lives in the house and like kind of takes care of Matthew's grandmother. Like, he's a handyman, and also like now he's kind of a dude around town and people really like him, and he's very responsible and very respectable. And he has really he is the kind of grandson that Matthew never was, this woman. Of course, there are not enough rooms in this house for Matthew and Hector to have separate rooms, Jen, so they have to sleep in bunk beds. And it's adorable because when there are these adorable little moments where like the family has to play board games, they're called the bunk bed bunch, right?
I love shit like that. I really do.
When they play on the same team, it's very cute. But these two like pretty quickly discover that like they really care about each other and that they are a good match. Matthew has this it becomes very clear that like he's not just, a rich ingenue. He's like a guy who has a lot of anxiety. He calls his anxiety the Krampus. And so like so every once in a while, like the Krampus rises and like he feels anxious, and it's really sweet. There's also, we discover like at some point in the book, like Hector gets the whole story out about like buying this island, and Matthew was in this relationship with these two married men and like he thought that it was a really like equal, like polyamorous relationship, and that they were all working toward a very like clear vision of a business that they thought they might be able to create. And he bought this island like thinking that this was going to be part of like this whole world that he was building in a relationship. And it fell apart, and he was like embarrassed to tell everybody like the truth about it, like that he had made this decision and it hadn't worked out. And I think it's a really lovely romance. It's very sweet. The sex is very sexy, but like truly this is just about two people just seeing each other, which is like
the best.
What you
that's
want in a holiday romance.
Right?
And of course, like it's Christmassy and it snows and it's like, this like small town where everybody's in your business and there's a meddling grandmother and like
perfect.
It has all the bits.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to talk about I'll Be Gone for Christmas by Georgia Boone. And this is basically a retelling of that movie with Jack Black.
The Holiday.
There you go.
I've got a holiday retelling too.
Who doesn't? So in this one, B is a San Francisco, lives in San Francisco. She does like tech, and she is in business with her twin sister, Beth. But she has basically fucked up and lost them a really big account. And so her friend is kind of like, why don't you do that? Like, it's called vacate, is like this, house swapping thing. Just get out of here. And so B contacts a woman named Clover Mills who lives in the small town of Salem, Ohio. And some things happened that I'll admit as an Ohioan, I was like, that's not real. For example, I will tell you with authority, I do not believe that there are any nonstop flights from San Francisco to Akron. Just don't think that's going to happen.
That's a very minor.
It's I'm sorry. My mother worked for United Airlines growing up, and I just really have some
Jen
very
is the exact
specific,
wrong person for you to make mistakes when it comes to
like airline shit.
Airline trivia, but
I'm like, I'm sorry, but that did not happen.
You.
Okay, anyway. No, it's super cute. So what happens is they agree to the swap. And Clover, so it's really interesting because even though B is like the driver of it, Clover ended up being the character who I was like a little more interested in. So Clover is the Salem, Ohioan who goes to the big city.
Right.
And what we find out about her is that she essentially dumped her fiance a year earlier. And he is still like managing the farm. She still has to see him all the time. His name's Knox. And they were like best friends growing up. But basically Clover really fell in love in high school with this girl named Haley. But like, this is small town Ohio. And this is like a young black girl from a very Christian family. And so it just like wasn't a thing. It wasn't possible. So she like Knox asks her out, and this was her best friend and she loves him. And so she agrees. And then basically the story is that like the way it goes is he was like, when are we going to get married? We can't be engaged forever. And she realizes like the answer in her heart is like, never, I can't marry him. Her mother has died. And this was like, by the way, everybody, really heartbreaking. So and like on her mother's deathbed, her mom was kind of like, why did you break up with him? And she starts to tell her about Haley. And her mother says to her, like, essentially, like, I didn't raise you that way. Right. And so it's just this like really hard thing because Clover has just like been in a small town, had to be closeted, right? Like just so she and her dad like share this like farmhouse. Her dad lives in like a basement apartment. So they do the swap. And part of the reason that Clover is interested in going to San Francisco is because that's where Haley ended up. And it's not that she's like going to search for her, but she just feels like this connection, like maybe I can find myself there too. So the swap happens like around, like it's going to be the last 2 weeks of December. Now, meanwhile, B goes to Salem and strikes up a romance with Knox while Clover goes to San Francisco, and she does meet Haley again. And like that's like actually very cathartic for them to like sort of talk through what happened. But she ends up falling in love with B's twin sister, Beth. I know. So cute.
How fun.
Yeah, it's really cute. I mean, this is just
That's very cute.
Like sweet, like cute holiday romance. Like just like complete, like warm and fluffy in so many ways. But also like, and I think this is why I was really drawn to like Clover's thing. We talk all the time about how why can't a small town person go to the big city and find themselves, right? In one of these in one of these stories. And that's what Clover's story is. She like meets other queer women and like they go out partying, and she goes to a lesbian bar for the first time, and it is so great. And so you really get that sense of like her like whole world opening for her in a way that just wasn't possible in her tiny little town. And so I think that's one of the reasons, like one of the real winning thing for me is like, if you've ever had that experience of being like, why are they always going to a small town? And like, you know, instead go to the big city. And that, so it was great. So that is called I'll Be Gone for Christmas by Georgia K. Boone.
Okay. So it's the year of the holiday retelling then, I guess, because I've got one too. Mine is called The Holiday Honeymoon Switch by Julia McKay. And here's what's cute about this one. So first of all, this is about best friends, Holly and Ivy, because of course it is. And so Holly and Ivy are like so tight that they also like look alike. Like they are best friends. And Holly's fiance leaves her, like jilts her basically at the altar, and leaves her in shock. So, and then Ivy is her, like I said, her best friend, and basically is like, what can I do? How can I help? You should go on your honeymoon. And Holly's like, I cannot. Like, I cannot go on my honeymoon. Listen, post-wedding, you were going to go to a cabin in, like, upstate New York in the Hudson Valley because Holly is I'm sorry, now I'm getting confused by the names. But because Ivy is an artist, and so Ivy is going like up into the Hudson Valley to be an artist for a week, and Holly was supposed to go on her honeymoon. But now she has convinced Ivy, like, you can be an artist in Hawaii. Like, you go to Hawaii. I'm gonna go. We're gonna switch. And Ivy's like, cool, ride or die. Yes, whatever you need. So they switch. And then Holly gets up into the Hudson Valley where she discovers that her Airbnb host is actually like a guy she knew in high school who was like her academic rival and who like clearly had a wicked crush on her, but was definitely not as hot as he is right now. Like, and she did not notice him, but now he's like buff and beautiful and like, you know, runs a cabin in the Hudson Valley. And Ivy heads off to Hawaii, where Holly's fiance turns up with some other woman.
Whoa.
And she's like, oh, fuck, I can't stay in the honeymoon suite because this. So she ends up kind of falling for a bartender, Oliver, the like hotel bartender, Oliver. And like and they have two deeply romantic, like fantasy vacations, like separate from each other. But what's really great, like there are a lot of little like holiday things that happen here that you will be very joyful about as a reader, including there's a cat named Mrs. Claus with a W. It's very cute. There are all sorts. Like, I do think that when you write a Christmas novella, this is a novel, when you write a Christmas story, you like the promise of the premise is you're going to load it all up, which is great. But there's this great moment where, like at the end, basically of the book, I'm going to spoil whatever. You've all seen you all know what happens. It's a romance novel.
Right, exactly. I'm like, what's going to happen?
Okay. So Holly is in the Hudson Valley. Like, there's a little bit of like a third act breakup with her and Aiden, and she calls Ivy and she's basically like, I need you. And Ivy's like, I gotta go. And she leaves Hawaii and she leaves Oliver and she flies all the way back, and she gets back to the East Coast and discovers, of course, like while she was in the air, like Aiden and Holly made out and made up. Right. And but like she goes up to where Holly is and like she knocks on the door and like in she goes, and they have this like kind of moment, and Holly's like, what's wrong? Like, you're a mess. And Ivy's like sad that she has left Oliver in Hawaii. And she's like, I've never felt this way about anyone but you. And it's this beautiful moment where like it really honors their friendship. Like they are best friends and like they love each other so much. And it was a really like emotional moment for me in the book where I was like, oh, like this is how it feels. And she, so, and Ivy's like, I love him. Like, I've never felt like that about anybody except you. Like, he's my other person. Like, you're my person and he's my person. And it was just, it was so great and so Christmassy. And I actually really do love The Holiday, like the movie. And
oh my God, I love that movie. Yeah, I was super delighted. Yeah.
And so...
yeah, it was.
And also, you all know how I love a holiday novella, and these books are like 2 novellas.
Yeah, it was really funny because on this book, I was looking on the one I'll Be Gone for Christmas. I was looking at the like a Goodreads review, maybe, or maybe it was on Amazon, and someone's like, I was sort of confused for a while because I thought these 2 women were going to end up with each other, and I was like, wait, don't you know how The Holiday works? Like,
I mean, that's an old movie now, Jen.
I know. I guess so.
I'm gonna look it up.
I guess
The
so.
Holiday.
It's probably from
Cameron Diaz. Cameron Diaz is like, it was 83. No,
she's not 83. I bet it was.
Guess when that came out.
1999.
No, 2006.
I was gonna say 2004, and then I was like, no, it must have been earlier. But okay, but still, this almost 20 years ago. Okay.
Guess how old Cameron Diaz is?
She's not 86.
She's not 86.
I do know that much. I don't know.
She's 52.
No.
But in my head, she's like 22.
Well, she probably still looks fucking great. Okay.
I mean,
It's Cameron Diaz.
absolutely. Better than us, my friend.
I mean, I don't look that great, everybody. Okay. Okay. So I have 2 more that I actually really enjoyed. So one is a novella and one is a Harlequin special edition, I think. So I'm going to start with Grounded for Christmas by Savannah Frierson. This one's a novella, and the reason is I'm going in this order is because you said Holly and Ivy or whatever. Okay, in this one, the 2 main characters are Mary and Joseph, and I'm not mad about it.
No, really?
Really?
Oh, wait, I do have another one. I'm sorry. I have one more.
Okay. So in this one, it starts off with Mary. She's on a plane. She's going from, I think, Boston to Houston to see her brother or something at Christmas. And she, sort of sees someone out of the corner of her eye, and he ends up sitting next to her. And she is horrified to realize that it's Joseph, which is her brother's friend who she had a one-night stand with at her brother's wedding, however, like 5 years ago. And
is there a baby in this book?
No, there's no baby.
Okay.
And what happened, and this book was very tender to me. Like, so, we started off with like the big emotional reads, but now I'm like going to instead like we start off with the big funny reads, but now I'm going to like the deeply emotional ones. And so, and I really was like, this is, again, a novella, 75 pages. And yet I was really like, wow, I just felt wrung dry by it. So in the book, what we find out is she is like sitting there remembering that like they had a great night together. And she thought like good sex. It was really sexy. She felt really comfortable with him. And the next morning, Joseph goes out of the room like before her, or she's like somehow, I can't exactly remember how it worked. It's been a couple of years actually since I read this. And she overhears all of the other groomsmen like kind of like basically joking with him like he was slumming it with her. Because she's not a pretty woman. She doesn't think of herself as beautiful. And some of it is just like herself, but there's a racial element too. She's a black woman. He was white. She has dark skin. And she just had been teased a lot. Like, right? Like, you're just not pretty. You're not. And she's a scientist. So she also is like, I leaned into being smart. And so it's really interesting though, because so she's thinking about the story like in her head about like what happened and how horrifying this was. But she doesn't like spit in his face or anything. So you kind of have a feeling that there must be something more to it. Okay. Meanwhile, she's a nervous flyer. They take off from Boston and they are grounded in Charlotte because the weather is so bad. And he is a pilot. And so he instantaneously realizes there are not going to be any hotel rooms. We're going to be lucky to get a rental car. He's like working his connections the minute he can get on the Wi-Fi. And he's like, I'm not going to leave you. And she's like, how is this guy so nice, right? When like it ended so badly.
When this all happened.
Right, when this all happened. And I like, and she, by the way, when she overheard this, she just like bolted. She just bolted. And so they're driving, and it turns out that like there's like a cabin in the woods, of course, that they like, you know, like somebody has that he can like stay in overnight. And they're driving, and like they get there, and finally he's basically like, why did you leave? And then you think she's going to like put him on blast. And she starts telling the story. And then you realize that she is actually like, she heard him laughing. And so she thought at first that he was laughing with them. But then she like realized later, like when she got her head together, like she got over that panic, embarrassed feeling, that he was just like uncomfortable and angry, right? And that he was, in fact, he was like, no, that's like, I defended you or whatever, right? Like, and she's like, I realized that. Like, I realized later that like the man who I spent the night with would never have treated me like that. But then I was ashamed and embarrassed that I had this knee-jerk response and like took off, and I didn't know how to tell you again. And I just was very moved by this, right?
Yeah.
You know, just like really like how when you barely know someone, you can really like get in your own head so fast, right? So anyway, they make up, Sarah, and it's terrific and great. And
I love it.
Mary and Joseph, stuck overnight in the snowstorm, have a great time. So it was deep, like I said, for 75 pages, I just felt like this packed in all of the like angsty, emotional, like holiday drama you can possibly want. So I really loved it. It's again, it's called Grounded for Christmas, and it's Savannah Frierson is the author.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it was great.
I have one more. I thought I did not, and I did. Because I only did 5, and I do have 6. Okay, I want to talk about Tara Pammy.
Oh yeah, I love Tara Pammy.
Talk about 2 people in a phone booth. Okay, she has this like tiny little holiday novella, like 50 pages, not even. And it's called Return to Love. And it begins with the hero sitting at a table in a restaurant. And it's snowing outside, and he is so nervous, and like you're just in his head. It is so intense. And his wife walks into the restaurant, and it becomes clear that they have not seen each other for 8 months. They were married for 20. They've been together for 24 years. They were together for 24 years. She was accidentally pregnant with twins at the age of 20.
Oh, no.
And then they stayed together, and he became this like massively successful business person. He like devoted himself to his career. He is a superstar in business. She was like his perfect, beautiful wife who kept his whole life organized and together. And then she had a hysterectomy and like went through a real like emotional time, and he just wasn't there for her. And so she took off 8 months earlier. And when she walks in, you have this sense you are so deep in his POV that like, you know, he is simultaneously deeply aware that he fucked up and fully believes that this is his one shot to get her back.
Wow.
And that he has done the work. Like he has figured out what needs to be done in order to do that, to like win her back. She like comes to the table, she sits down, and he says, and like there's this kind of throwaway line in his like deep POV where he thinks to himself, like he knows what she always wanted from him and he couldn't give her like this kind of like any playfulness. And it like becomes clear that it's like a sense of like adventure. Not like we have to travel the world, but like just a sense of like, I want it to feel special between us. Like I want it to feel like you want to be with me more than you want to be anywhere else. And he says, it's nice to meet you. And then he says, you don't look like your profile picture. And she kind of like sits back and is like, it takes her a second to like get that he's restarting like the whole thing. And they have this incredibly hot, it turns super hot, like super fast, because they've missed each other so much. And they like deeply love each other and like want each other. They like long for each other. And so he like makes her come at the table. Like it's very, very hot. And then like they walk through a snowstorm back to a hotel room where like they play like whatever, a sex game that they played when they were like 22. And they just like rediscover each other through this kind of very intense like intimacy. It's deeply, deeply intimate. And it feels like you are a voyeur, like you are watching two people who have broken each other, like who have really hurt each other. And I mean, like, to be fair, she did not hurt him. He hurt her big time. But like, who have been together for so long that like they love each other so much that they feel unhinged, like untethered without each other.
Right? Yeah.
And like it is really intense and really, really sexy, but just like so romantic and emotional, and it's great.
I love it.
But like not for. This is the opposite of, the holiday.
Yeah, right.
Courts.
Exactly.
And it's so quiet and intense.
And what's the title of that one again?
Yeah, Return to Love, a steamy marriage in trouble. That's the tagline. But also a flirty, filthy 40s love novella, it says. So I don't know if that's Tara's like, I'm going to Google that right now. Appropriate, since we just did our seasoned romance, our women over 40 can get it. Oh no, it looks like there are 2 more coming.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to wrap up by talking about 2 Harlequin special editions by Jennifer Wilk. And these both feature Jewish main characters, although one is a like inter-religious, I don't know what you call it, anyway, I'm struggling. What's the name when it's like 2 different religions? Because like he's Catholic. Okay, whatever.
Interfaith.
I was like,
Interfaith.
Interfaith. That's the word I'm looking for. Okay. And I will also admit, I ran out of time to read one of them. I decided one was from November of 2024 and one was from December. And I was like, well, I'll have time. I'm going to start with the November book. And then I did not have time. So I'll just tell you about the second one. The first one is called Deadlines, Donuts, and Dreidels. And in this book, Jessica Sachs it opens with Jessica, who is living in Brooklyn. She has like moved away from her small town, which I think is in New Jersey, maybe. And she just like loves her life. She's a reporter for like a local paper. She does investigative reporting. She's really good at her job. But because of like a mistake that she made, she essentially is about to get fired. But her boss knows, essentially like the higher ups want to fire her because of this thing. But her boss is like, I'll give you one more chance. The town where you grew up in, there's this guy named Thomas Carville, who essentially we want to write like a human interest story about. He's a fireman. He saved somebody from a fire, and so go home and do this special interest story. And if you do a good enough job and like kind of lay low for a little bit, maybe this will blow over. And Jessica's like, I don't even do human interest stories. And her boss was like, do you want a job or not? And Jessica's like, let me get on that train and go home. And it turns out that Thomas Carville was her next door neighbor growing up, but he was like 4 years older than her. So she was like, had this huge crush on him, but she was in 8th grade and he was a senior in high school and going off to college. And, and so she's just like, she had this huge crush on him, but like also, was kind of like a little humiliated by it because looking back, of course, nothing was going to happen. So when she gets home, she like leaves him like a peppy little note on his door. Hi, it's Jessica. I was hoping to talk to you. And Thomas essentially is like in the house ignoring her. And it turns out that it's really fascinating. I cannot remember really the last time I've read a book where a hero is a recovering alcoholic. So he has been maybe the one book, that Hollywood book. But in this book, he's been in recovery for like 8 months. And it is like a really hard one for him. Like it is something he is constantly working on all the time. His mother has died. His father has like up and moved to like Arizona and left the family house to him. And so he essentially, in the process of recovering from this fire, he stopped drinking. And, it's one of these, nobody knows the truth about what happened. And I'm certainly not going to be giving any reporters any interviews about it. Even Jessica, who I remember as kind of a pesky kid, but now she's a hottie,
Sure.
right? And it's really interesting because his parents are like, her parents, still live next door and are super kind, but her mom is like kind of joking with her, like, oh, haha, I used to have such a crush on him, but also like makes it clear that like, even though that, they're older now, that the fact that Thomas is Catholic and their family is Jewish would still be a deal breaker, and I think that it's just like a really interesting story because along with like these differences between them, he loves this town. She's a big city girl, the interfaith issue, she has to like explain anti-Semitism to him. And the things that like sort of she faces. And of course, he's a recovering alcoholic harboring this big secret. It just feels like one of those books that really is mining the idea that like at the holidays, there are ways in which people can, I don't know, like find each other, right? Like it's just like one of those stories, right?
Yeah.
And I just really thought that this is a great book. And I really like Jennifer Wilkes' contemporary or category romances quite a lot. So just worth noting that she has another one called Fortune's Holiday Surprise. In this one, and this is the one I will admit to everybody I didn't get to, I'm just going to like tell you what's on the back essentially, which is Arlo Fortune lost his best friend in an accident. And so he essentially is going to be, he's like, essentially adopting his friend's daughter, Aviva. And Carrie Kaplan is the sister-in-law and is like also like sort of, trying to like figure out who's going to raise this little girl. And and Carrie is just like, I really just want to make sure that she has a Jewish home and that she, like this is what my sister would have wanted. And so you get these two people who are like devastated by loss, right, who are going to come together, I'm sure, and make a family with this little girl. And I really, again, this is part of a series, The Fortunes of Texas. But if you are looking for like category romances, I think also just really deliver these holidays, like exactly what you want at the holidays. And like I said, I think if you're looking for the more emotional, right? I mean, obviously these two books, both by Jennifer Wilk, would be great. So that is Deadlines, Donuts, and Dreidels, and Fortune's Holiday Surprise.
Perfect. Well, an hour and 45 minutes in, I think we've really done the job here. We've told everybody how to work audiobooks. We've talked about the Lilly Library. Suggested people take a trip to Indiana. In and out, everyone. And then, and we've given you, what? 13. Lucky 13.
Lucky
books
13.
to read for this holiday season. Let us know what your favorite holiday romances are. Also, check show notes. We'll make sure we put links to all of our holiday episodes in show notes so that you can go back and listen to other episodes, find other books that we love. Don't miss the Santa episode. I really do enjoy that one a great deal. Next week, we are off because it is Christmas Day.
Yes.
So happy Christmas to everybody who celebrates. And if you do not celebrate, we hope you have a great week. Hopefully you'll get a little bit of rest in either way. And then we will be back for our New Year's episode.
Yes.
Which is going to be very exciting. We have special guests lined up. And our first episode of the new year will be The Proposition by Judith Ivory, a read-along. I am rereading it right now and remembering all the ways I love it. And I cannot wait for Jen to do the same. So do yourself a big fat favor, and over the next couple of weeks, read that book. It is listen, I said to Eric this morning after I came in from my walk, I was like, we don't even know what we're doing anymore because this book
we've lost the recipes. Is that what you're saying?
It just hits so hard. But enjoy that rat catcher hero and that heroine. I have a lot to say. Anything else, Jen?
Have a great holiday, everybody.
I'm Sarah McLean. I'm here with my friend Jen Prokop. We are Fated Mates. You can find us every Wednesday wherever you get your podcasts or at fatedmates.net. While you're at fatedmates.net, click on show notes to go and find all of the things we promised that we will link to in this episode, including a list of all the books that we recommended. And this week, a list of all the different ways that you can find audiobooks in and around your devices. And you can also find us online at Instagram and Threads at Fated Mates Pod and on Blue Sky at fatedmates.net. So that's it. Happy holidays, everyone. It's Hanukkah too next week, and we're thinking of you. So see you on New Year's Eve.